Spiritual awakening isn't random. It follows a measurable psychological sequence. There are 7 specific stages the human mind moves through as consciousness expands. And when you understand this map, your entire life starts to make sense. Let's talk about these stages of awakening, not as a metaphor, but as a neurocognitive shift in how the human mind organizes reality. The first stage is what we call reflexive consciousness. This is the mind on autopilot. The individual lives inside a closed loop of conditioning. Thoughts feel like facts. Emotions feel like reactions to the world rather than internal signals. Your brain is operating on patterned loops formed in childhood, and your identity is fused with your personality. There is no perspective on one's experience, only experience itself. This is the default neurological setting of a human being who hasn't yet woken up to themselves. The second stage begins with what psychologists sometimes call a disruption event. This is the fracture in the model of reality. Something destabilizes your worldview. It could be trauma, loss, burnout, depression, or even a synchronicity so precise it breaks your assumptions about how life works. Your mind starts asking deeper questions like, why am I here? Why am I like this? What else is going on here? This is the cracking of the old operating system, and suddenly the person realizes, I am not living consciously. I am living mechanically. The third stage is the emergence of metacognition, the first true awakening. You become aware of your internal processes, your thoughts, your impulses, your emotional patterns. You catch yourself in mid-reaction and suddenly see the pattern from the outside. You feel a space between what happens and how you respond, the mind observing the mind. You realize, if I can watch my thoughts, I can't be my thoughts. This single shift rewires the architecture of perception. Stage 4 is the deconstruction of identity. As meta-awareness strengthens, the psychological self, the ego construct, begins to dissolve. This is the stage most people mistake for falling apart, but it is actually the breaking down of the ego architecture. Your survival strategies, your trauma patterns, your attachment wounds, they all rise to the surface. Your psyche is reorganizing itself. Neural pathways begin pruning. Old emotional material releases. This is not collapse. This is reconfiguration. Stage 5 is expansion, not metaphorically, but physiologically. The nervous system transitions out of chronic survival mode and begins integrating higher-order perception, intuition, pattern recognition, symbolic interpretation, interoceptive clarity. This is when synchronicities increase. This is your brain integrating top-down intuitive processing with bottom-up sensory processing for the first time. Your system becomes more coherent. Life begins to feel guided rather than chaotic. Stage 6 is non-dual awareness, a shift so profound it appears across neuroscience, Buddhism, Christian mysticism, and quantum cognition. It is the moment the boundary between self and other begins to dissolve. You start to notice that the boundary between your inner world and your outer experience is not as solid as you thought. Your internal state shapes your external reality. Perception becomes participatory. Reality feels more like a unified field than a dualistic environment. This is why synchronicity becomes constant here. You are no longer separate from the system you're interacting with. And finally, stage 7 is stabilization, awareness becoming embodied. This is where awakening stops being a moment and becomes your baseline. Your nervous system becomes more regulated and less reactive. You set boundaries without guilt. You can hold someone's pain without losing yourself in it. You operate from expanded awareness consistently. It looks like emotional regulation, clarity under pressure, intuitive intelligence, and a profound internal authority. Not dissociation, not bypassing, but grounded presence. And if you've been feeling overwhelmed or destabilized or profoundly transformed, you are not malfunctioning. You are evolving. Awakening isn't random chaos. It's a neurological, psychological, and perceptual evolution with a clear structure. And if you can locate yourself somewhere in these 7 stages, everything you've been going through suddenly becomes coherent. So the question now is this: which stage are you in? And how does it feel to realize this was never random? It was developmental.